Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Childless Not by Choice podcast, where my mission is to recognize and speak to the childless not by choice women and men around the world. Sevilla Morgan here. I am spreading the great news that we can live a joyful, relevant, and fulfilled life, although we did not have the children we so wanted. I also welcome you even if you did not or do not fit the demographic. Maybe you did not want children, or maybe you have children. Welcome to episode 126. And this is our February episode. And guess what, guys? We have a guest today. But before I get to our guest, I am so excited, you all. You'll see why in just a moment. But before I introduce our guest, I wanted to say a quick thank you to my patrons, my Patreon contributors. Thank you for your monthly financial contributions to the platform. If you are not yet a patron, join the Patreon family of monthly contributors by visiting patreon.com/childless not by choice and set up your monthly contribution for as little as $5 per month. No matter your giving level, I have a gift for you. And if you prefer, go on over to PayPal. You can give via PayPal at booksbysevillamorgan@gmail.com. That's booksbysevillamorgan@gmail.com. Either way, thank you for your contributions. They are appreciated. And so we have a guest, you guys. When I first heard about this lady, I'm like, the title of her book just grabbed me and it intrigued me. And I was like, wait, I have to talk to this lady. I have got to find out what this title is all about. So Donna Ward is a writer, an editor, and publisher with qualifications in classics, economics, and social work. She worked in policy development, welfare management, and community development before establishing her private practice, which offered individual and group psychotherapy and organizational consultancy offerings, strategic planning, conflict resolution, which we probably need a lot of right now, research and report writing. In her retirement, she established the literary journal Indigo and the micropress Inkerman and Blunt. Her prose has appeared nationally and internationally, including in the Griffith Review, the Huffington Post, and the Big Issue. Her memoir, She I Dare Not Name, A Spinster's Meditation on Life, is available now. And that is why we're here today to talk more about her book, She I Dare Not Name, A Spinster's Meditation on Life. Hi, Donna. How are you?
Hello, Sevilla. I'm very well. Thank you.
Awesome. It's so nice to finally get in contact with you. You reached out during my hiatus, I think.
Yes, I did.
Thank you for your patience with that.
That's fine. Everything comes in perfect timing.
Yes, it does. So we can just jump right in here. I kept running your title around in my mind, and I was like, why She I Dare Not Name? So let's start there. Why that? She I Dare Not Name. Who is she?
To be perfectly honest with you, I have to say I'm not quite sure where that title came from. It is in a sentence in the book, and I was writing about that moment where my life was plunging in a direction I had not expected, had no idea I was going in, or any idea about how to manage it. Mm-hmm. As I was writing that, I said something like, falling towards the terrain of She I Dare Not Name. And it sat there in the book for quite a while, and the book was called something else entirely. And then I realised as I was writing the book and researching for the book in particular that a lot of the material on being single is not about being a spinster. And a lot of the research, even the collection of data, in both the US but particularly in Australia, none of it identifies spinster. It talks about singles who are not yet married, or singles who are living together apart, or it talks about single parents. For a long time, gay couples were seen as, if they didn't identify themselves as people, didn't identify themselves as de facto, then they were put into the single category. But there's absolutely no historical data on spinsterhood. There's a little bit on bachelorhood, but not much on that either. just gets all bundled into the idea of single. And I guess that's she I dare not name. Spinster is a cursed word. I didn't want to think of myself as spinster, and so there it is, the she I dare not name. And as I was writing the book, I was realising clearly that I entered the book writing as a single woman, but then I realised that I was going to have to use the word spinster to identify my particular life story from all of the other different single stories in the world.
So, speaking of spinster.
Yeah. Oh, you said the word.
No, I can't believe I said it.
It's okay. It's like swearing for the first time. You realise that nothing happens afterwards.
It's like, oh my gosh, I was cringing.
Yeah. Yes.
So, did you get any feedback for using that word?
Yes, I get two sorts of feedback. One is, I'm so glad you're reclaiming the word spinster. Mm-hmm. And I got, the first time that was said to me, I got quite a shock because I don't consider that I'm reclaiming the word. If you reclaim a word, it's kind of like you're putting a gloss on it, making it better, or making, in this case, a feminist statement of some kind. Whereas what I was doing was using the word because I knew that if I used that word, and I still know that if I use that word, the person to whom I'm speaking knows exactly what kind of life I'm living. They're not going to confuse me with a divorcee who has grown-up children and grandchildren who happens to be living alone. They're not going to confuse me with that. They're going to see my life. And as dark and as dismal as lots of people think that is, I have a door open to me to speak about what a spinster life is. And sure, it's dark. There's a lot of prejudice around. But also there's a lot of richness and experience, and it's as difficult in many ways and as joyful in many ways as being coupled or having children. And the other response I got was just simply this: why did she use that word? Yeah. But why did she use the word? This is friends reporting back to me that they loved my book and they were talking to their friends about it. And they said, well, that's all very nice, but why did she use that word? It's such a terrible word. To which I say it's 8 letters in the English language. It started out as a really lustrous word, if you like. It identified women with means, women who worked and earned a living and were seen as women to marry, to couple with, because they were independent and, came with a job and some money in their pocket, and that was a good thing. And Elizabeth I, so it was coined in or used in the 15th century. And then in the 17th century, early 1600s, Elizabeth I died. But previously to that, when the word was had a good kind of implications to it, Elizabeth I was the Queen of England, and that did make a difference. I think after she died, they started inventing dictionaries, and this is when they decided to use the word specifically for women who had of a certain age who had not yet married. And then as those women grew older, they became needy in some way, and they needed brothers or fathers or sons of nephews to look after them in their old age, and that was seen as a burden, and they were despised for not contributing to society and being a burden on it. And after Elizabeth I, of course, we see the diminishing, sorry, a bit wordless, this is my age, diminishing of the what we call the English Renaissance, and incoming a much more conservative and puritanical kind of view of life, and and all those struggles that Elizabeth was able to hold together in England, that struggle between the very conservative Protestant church and the more, shall we say, gregarious Catholic church. The Protestants were gaining some sway after she died. She wasn't around to hold that very conservative view of the world and how women should be in it. Mm.
So basically the word spinster just took a downward turn ever since.
Yes, and it's got worse until now.
It's gotten worse. So, on a side note, the people that are asking, why did she use that word? Are they spinsters? Are they unmarried women, or what's?
I don't know, actually, to be honest with you. My sense is that they're older women with children and a husband, an errant husband who's gone off with a younger woman. That's my sense of who it is. But they're actually people not even in the state that I'm living in. So, it was reported to me, this response. I've had other, face-to-face responses where women have said, I thought that word was of past times. We don't use that word anymore because we don't live that life. And to which I said, well, I'm living that life right here in front of you. And one woman said, but I'm single too. And I said, so you have children? And, oh, yes, I have grown-up children. My husband died, or my husband went somewhere else, or whatever that story is, or they never had husbands. And then I've had this other funny response because the book's been quite popular here in Australia, and so I've had women who are clearly not spinsters saying, I'm a spinster too.
Oh.
I just think, okay, that's good if you like that. If you like it. They're not living the spinster life. They're living a single woman life or an older divorced woman life. They're very different stories. Very different stories.
I used to have a coworker that would say to something like that, she would say, if you like it, I love it.
Yes, yeah. It's fun, yeah.
Really? So, my mom is gone. God rest her soul.
Yes,
I looked through her marriage certificate. She got married. She would just kill me if she knew I was telling this, but she got married at 28. I think she was 28 when she got married. And her marriage certificate said that she was a spinster. And I was just so upset over that. I'm like, 28? Really? And you were a spinster? Yeah. And she's like, well, I guess that's just what they said. And, at that time. And by the way, just, to speak to what you said about who a spinster is, she was working before she met my dad. Yes. She was making her own money. She was doing her own thing, living her own life till this gentleman showed up. So pretty much like what you said, But she's like, well, I guess just the word they used at that time. And I'm like, and then I see it on your book and I'm, wait a minute. That word is, like you said, it's back.
It's back, yes. And that certain age has never been really defined, and it depends on the era in which you're living. And 28 in your mother's time, 28 would be a little bit harsh, I would think. Even so, we're talking 40s and 50s and 60s. Your mother when she married?
Yeah, she got married in 1965.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just when the word was, when marriage was being challenged. And certainly in America, it's surprising she got married because the marriage rate was just plummeting and everyone was very worried that people weren't getting married in America. Well, not so much in Australia.
She wasn't in America, to interrupt.
Oh, there you go.
I was born in the Caribbean, so my parents are West Indian. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So different. So a completely different culture that I don't really understand. I don't know anything about. So I wouldn't be able to say anything, so maybe 28's an age there. It certainly in the 60s wasn't anywhere near the age. We were thinking more 30s here in Australia. And, 30s, it seems to have stuck around 30s. Women are expected to be married by their late 30s here, or coupled, settled down, let's just say.
Right. Yeah. And that's pretty much the same here now. The Caribbean, just quick history is, was, you probably heard the term, the sun never set on the British Empire. Because just about every country you can think of that's now independent, except maybe Scotland, but that's a whole nother story. They're now independent countries, but they were at one time ruled by England. So there are still, I guess, vestiges of that in the Caribbean and on many of the islands. So I could see spinster being used back then because I would think it came from that,
Yes. We were different in Australia. Australia's a very what can I say? We're not rebellious as much as we just don't follow the rules if we don't want to. And I think we were colonised by the British, and there was certainly a conservative attitude in the ruling class, let's say. We think of ourselves as a classless society here, but there's certainly differences in people's lives. But we didn't have that kind of royal, kind of hierarchy that England has, but certainly the governors were of the British upper class. But we were colonised by prisoners, and a lot of the prisoners were Scots and Irish who didn't come under English law and didn't feel that they needed to do what the governor told them to. And also, in the settlement of Melbourne, where I'm living now, we were given, it was a very interesting time in England where, slavery was being challenged and brought to an end, and there was a very strong social justice and emancipated ideas of freedom, like the French Revolution, were happening in England. And England was instructing Australia very clearly to follow those sorts of ideas, but we just didn't. We just, got rid of the Indigenous people and colonised any way we liked and killed whatever we liked and did whatever we liked. So, because it's very, very far away, even now, Australia, it's very far away. But we had a very different foundation to our society here in Australia, and that meant that when we had only a very brief period where traditional marriage and family was reigned, if you like. Often our settlers didn't formally marry, they just shacked up. They might have had children, they had children because they had farms and they needed workers. And I think even my uncle was born out of wedlock. His parents got married later. A lot of that happened here in Australia. And so when the 60s and 70s came and marriage and family was up for grabs again, being reconstructed, we didn't have the same rebellion or concern that was expressed in the US. That's in America, there was very strong concern that traditional family was breaking down and that people weren't getting married formally in a church. That was a big concern. In Australia, we didn't care whether you got married in a church or not. We didn't care whether you went to church or if there was a church. It's a very different kind of society here. And so I think talking about single life and even childlessness in Australia is actually very different. We think we're the same as America and the UK, but we're actually quite different. We look the same, but we're different.
So let me take another turn before I do this a lot.
Taking turns.
Because I have of course I have several other questions, but let me stop and take a turn here because I want to know if that's the history. Do they think that maybe you speaking about, or any woman who's speaking of, because I know there are several Australian women who have platforms, childless, not by choice, platforms. How does Australian society see women who talk about childlessness and singleness? Do they think, well, what do you mean? How do they see that?
I still think that there's judgments at personal levels, I think officially we like people to be able to have the freedom to be who they are and live their lives the way they want them. However, I think in Australia, you've got to keep it nice. The conversations need to be kept nice. So if you're going to talk about the grief of stillbirth or IVF not working or all the different varieties of ending up without children, if you're going to talk about the grief about that, the dominant narrative is motherhood and mothering, and it's really at that personal level where you will receive the put downs or the I don't want to talk about it. I will certainly. Now, I didn't experience grief at not having a child, but I did experience grief at not being chosen, if you like, or not it's not that's not right for me. It was at not meeting the person. And I was a bit picky. I did want men who had a bank account and a steady job. I know, not much to ask, but there it is. And someone who rocked my socks, you know. So I was called picky for wanting such, because, you know, many women will just have what's there. And being able to speak about what it was like, or even trying to talk about solitude and how to manage it when you've got too much of it, these things weren't taboo, although it felt like a taboo. It was just that the dominant conversation has to be the trouble about having children, how difficult that is. The dominant conversation has to be the trouble about having a husband and how errant he is, or your sexuality not matching the heteronormative, I believe is the term now, you know, heteronormative narrative. So when you're bringing in what's considered, I don't know that there's a judgment about it as much as they just don't want to talk about it. It's beyond their imagination. They haven't got the mechanism or the conversation, the response. They don't think about the fact that women go through IVF and it doesn't work, or that a baby is born and then dies in the following months. They don't think about that because they're rare experiences in their lives, in the dominant culture's lives. They don't think about a woman like myself who's just continually found that life is not open to me, and had to come to terms with the fact that my life's going to be different and I need to work out how that happens. And I can't actually have that conversation with my friends because all they have is a set of stock phrases, I think of them, borrowing a phrase from music, but a stock standard phrases about how the world goes. You'll find someone. I believe there's someone for everyone in the world. You are not a spinster. This is one thing I get a lot. You're not a spinster. You'll find someone. I'm 65. I'm thinking that's not going to happen. And, you know, I've had the door open for some time, but, you know, now I just think it's not going to happen. And so I need to live what is rather than what might be. So having those conversations with friends has been very difficult, and I've had to stand up for myself and woman up a lot to be able to say, look, you know, we need to talk about me and how this real life is going for me. Yeah.
So I think it's pretty similar here, because there are still people who look at you like you have two heads when you say that you don't have children or that you're not married. I mean, it's happened to me. I think it's pretty similar here. They just, if you're not living that particular life, whatever that life is, you can't possibly think outside the box and think, well, wait a minute. It could have been me. Nobody that's got children and a husband could ever think. The first thought is going to be, well, something must be wrong with her. She must. There's got to be something wrong, because, like you said, somebody says there's somebody out there for everybody. When we very well know that if we did the math, that couldn't be possible. It's not true.
No,
but everybody
not.
wants to. Yeah, but everybody wants to just believe that, and like you say, use the stock phrases and try to unwind from the conversation as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah. And another thing that people say here, and maybe they say in America too, is, and I think it's the keeping it nice. The other phrase that they use is, I just don't want to think too much about things. You know, their life is challenging. I think having children and keeping jobs in a society where, you know, we no longer have jobs for the rest of our lives and we can't rely on income coming in, and yet we have to have two incomes coming in to pay for a house, all of these sorts of things. It's really challenging times. I wouldn't take that away from anyone with children, whether they're a couple or single. And so, they're running from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to sleep, and probably still in their dreams. So they don't want to think very deeply. And when, as a friend, you say, look, I'm very happy to sit and listen to all, the struggle that you're having in your life, but we need to have some time to talk about mine. I am placing a burden on that friendship. It's not in the code of friendship to sit with the darkness with each other. Friendship means almost exactly the opposite, that it's about the good time. It's about, yes, turning up to funerals and weddings and things like that, but not necessarily, you're just lucky if you hit someone who is going to walk with you through something, but it's not part of the contract between friends in the way that it's part of the contract with intimate relationships like mothers, sisters, fathers, partners if you've got one. So putting that burden on a friendship is, risking the friendship. If it works, it's good. Mm-hmm. You're lucky. And if it doesn't, then for next time.
Wow. It's tough, but I think I think and I hope for all of us that we have at least that one person. Yes, it's tough to be married with children, especially in 2020.
Yes.
It's crazy. We yes. We're not taking anything away from that at all. I cannot imagine the homeschooling, the getting the computer set up, the crazy stuff that's going on right now. So I totally, I get it, but there's got to be some, for lack of a better term, quid pro quo. There's got
I agree.
Something.
Yeah.
Yes. But I just hope that we all have at least that one person that we can talk to.
And I think in a way, this experience, the variety of it, of being single and childless, is beckoning a conversation about the importance of friendship and what friendship can hold. Mm-hmm. And I think, it is a brave woman who demands something of her friendship that hasn't otherwise, previously been demanded. And it, because you do risk the loss of it. And we know this because there is a narrative that talks about, the close buddies, men and women, who are in each other's pockets until the one comes along. And we know that there's literature, both popular culture and research and, academic literature on the crack that happens in the friendship when the person that they're going to spend the rest of their life comes along. When that romantic long-term relationship comes on, loyalties have to move. Mm-hmm. And that's what puts a strain on the friendship. And so if that friend happens to, the friend who's being left in a way, abandoned in a way, happens to never find a partner, then as has happened to me, I've had several close friends in my life to the point where I've had to decide not to ever get that deep because I keep losing them to someone else, and quite rightly so, but there it is. And it's not a big conversation about how to manage that friendship and the importance long term, how to hold a friendship and have an intimate partner and family at the same time. And in fact, to ask a couple and, parent to do that is it's a big ask. Mm-hmm. And it often is refused. Yeah.
Well, I know it may seem a little sad, but I mean, we have to tell the truth because we never really know, who's listening. And I think that this conversation is going to help many people because there are some things that no matter what country we live in, it's too painful to discuss. And I think this is one of those conversations. So I really appreciate that we're talking about this. I took a quote from, where did I take it from? Was it chapter? Oh, was it the intro? I don't remember. But it says, you'll know, it's your book.
Well, I don't know. I've forgotten it.
It says, I write to shatter the stereotype that shadows me in a singular narrative, a narrative that writes me out of my own society, unquote. And when I read that, I was like, whoa, that was deep.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm thinking that must be like the rude commentary and questions we get from friends, family, and strangers alike, about our status in this world,
Yes.
in society, that
Yes.
we have to explain ourselves because
Yes.
we're single. I was called picky too by somebody who didn't even know me. It was a friend of my mom's, a coworker, and I guess my mom must have told her I wasn't married, whatever the conversation was, and she said maybe I'm too picky. And I'm thinking, first of all, you don't know me, and second, I mean, somebody like you said, a man that's working with a job with a bank account that can. I mean, that's not too much to ask for. It's really not. And I'm not gonna settle for less. I've never thought about settling for less just for companionship and for, dare I say, the sex and the everything that comes with it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to.
Yeah. Well, it's dangerous too. We have domestic violence rates in Australia, particularly during our lockdowns here that have skyrocketed. And we have a list of women who are killed every month by their partners or ex-partners, as you do in America. And, so to decide to shack up with someone and have children is a big decision. And you could be risking your life and the life of your children. And that's not all of it. I mean, it's not just domestic violence. You do want a man with a bank account. If you're going to have to be at home raising children, you need someone to bring home the bacon. Not only that, if you're going to go out and work, you need someone, you need a system that's going to allow you to pay for childcare and health. And in America, you're struggling to have the kind of health cover that we have, but our government's, pretty much dedicated to unravelling what we've got as well at the moment, it seems. But, it's a big decision to commit to another person for the rest of your life. And many people do it without thinking of the big implications. They wouldn't go into a business that is that risky.
Right.
Yeah, where they could lose their lives, and we call it sexually transmitted debt here for divorcees in this country, and divorced women come out the worst financially as well. Wow. So it's a big risk to get married, to couple, to have children.
Right, and people do it every day.
Yeah,
without a thought,
and they blame us for not doing it.
Right, or that we're thinking too much about it.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm very sorry, but I'm not, I don't think I've ever said my age on my podcast. I'm not going to do it now, but I will just say that I'm over 50, a little bit.
Yeah. Wow.
That's going to shock
you don't look
lot of people. I know people don't look my age. So it's going to shock a lot of people, but it is what it is. So
yes.
I still felt intrigued by your book though, because I'm like, I figure I'm headed that way. It's not that I'm wishing anything negative or anything, but I mean, just think about it. It's a high possibility that I'm not going to meet Mr. Right. And if I do meet him now, what are we going to offer each other? Is companionship enough? I like my solitude. I'm not antisocial, but I do like my alone time. So this person, whoever this man is, I couldn't even describe him, to be honest with you. Yes. So before we continue, I just wanted to say, and this is more for the listener, that there is a review by a woman named Shelley McInnes. And I don't know if you've read her review or not, but I loved her review, and I put a link to it in the show notes for the listeners.
Fabulous.
Yeah, to turn into. I love that. So, who else? Oh, and then I was also thinking, and I don't know if you're familiar with this organization. It was called Aging Without Children, but I think they changed their name to Aging Well Without Children. Have you heard of
no.
them?
No, I don't know.
Okay, I think they're out of England. I'm going to feel really badly, but I believe I know one of the founders. I think I've interviewed him. I don't want to mention the name in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this gentleman that I interviewed is also one of the founders. But at any rate, I put a link to their organization in here, or I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's called Aging Well Without Children. And I thought about them as I, thought about you and the book and the title. And so what do you think? What do you think we can do to age well without children?
I don't think it's with or without children. I think to age well is to have, I think the most important thing is to accept that life is as it is, and to be in a state of wonder about it all the time, or as often as you can. I can tell you a little story. I was driving down the street and I'd stopped at the intersection, and it was work time, peak hour traffic time, and I was stopped at the lights, and this woman was walking down the footpath toward the bus stop, and she was just rearranging her skirt, a very ordinary kind of action, but that's kind of how life is. This ordinary action will occur and an incredible epiphany will just break through. I was sitting there and I was thinking about her rearranging her skirt and being attentive to how she looked. And I just started thinking about how much effort we put into worrying about what the rest of the world thinks of us and how we look and how we should look and how we don't, or, who we are and how it doesn't fit. And I thought to myself, well, if I don't accept the way I am now, if I don't accept the world the way it is now, and I know I've only got like 10, 15 years tops left. I'm 66 now, so I'm looking at the last moments, if you like. If I don't enjoy this and stop trying to be something that I'm not, then when? Then when? And I think that's what aging is. If you don't go with the flow now, then when? And that's what informs me every day. Every time I find myself thinking, I didn't do something, or I'm not what I should be, or anything like that, which I don't happen to think that very often anymore, but when I was more actively doing that, I started thought, if I don't relax into this now, then when? These are the last few moments. To be alive is an incredible thing. I can't even get my head around the miracle of it, and I'm not even speaking in particularly religious terms here. That's a whole other kettle of fish. What I'm thinking is every day I think human beings are remarkable critters. We're just picking up, the coffee pot and pouring a cup of coffee. Monkeys don't do this, We have amazing skills, let alone building the buildings that we do and all the other things that we do in this environment that manage to damage us, and we'll see the end of us in the end. But we are remarkable creatures and have done remarkable things. Even the fact that I'm speaking to you, that I can talk, that we can talk, listen, understand, and, share these sorts of experiences, that's a remarkable thing. Many other creatures do not, the majority of other creatures do not do that as far as we know. I just think every day, the fact that the wind blows and the sky is blue and that we can breathe the air, so far so good, if we don't damage it too much, the fact that this happens is incredible enough. If we don't relax into the wonder of that now, then when? Because it will be over and we will have missed it when we die. So really that's how I think we can age well, is to just be in this world and be in wonder. in wonder.
I love that. Then when?
Yes.
Love that. I
Yes.
love that. That's beautiful. I'm thinking as you were talking, I'm thinking about, yes, not only the fact that we can talk and communicate with each other, but we are communicating with each other from the other side of the world from each
I
other.
know.
I mean, I'm never, it never ceases to amaze me
Yes.
that we can do this. This is amazing to me.
I know.
And so, and it's tomorrow for you.
I know.
And it's yesterday. Well, it's tomorrow for you and yesterday for me.
I know. It's quite incredible what we humans do. And
Right.
look, there's a lot of darkness to what we do as well.
Yes.
But that's even wondrous as well. And I often think, we like to keep it nice, as I was saying earlier. We don't want to talk about the dark side. But honestly, what is more awesome than evil? And I mean awesome not in a positive sense, but awesome, like it's awe. The kind of awe that darkness brings is as remarkable as light. Light's easy to incorporate, and to stay in. But to stand in the face of, we're dealing with the fact that our special services soldiers have committed terrible crimes in Afghanistan. And it's very interesting watching the Australian psyche and how they do not want to talk about it officially. I mean, us on the everyday level, we're kind of going, oh, well, that happens. But it's like such a shame to our national image of ourselves, so that the military are upset, the politicians are upset, they're trying to hide information. And I keep thinking, but that's the awesomeness of war. You engage in that kind of activity, it's not going to be goodness and light. There is never a right or just war. All war is bad and terrible things happen. And that's how bad it can be. Right. People can commit heinous crimes. That is the other side. The balance to existence that's the other side of it. And if we don't stand in awe and wonder of that now, then when? We will miss it after we die. We will have missed the entire experience. This is how to age well.
I love it.
Doesn't matter.
I know I probably should have asked you before, but do you have the book there with you? Is there a portion of it that you could, just a couple sentences that you could read to us?
You're very lucky. Because I, like most people, have my computer on a pile of books, and strangely enough, mine's on the top. But it's actually not. It's the proof copy that's on the top. I'll just read a little thing, and thank you for asking me. It's a short essay that's in the book. And I'm sorry, I haven't looked at the book. So it came out last March, so I haven't looked at it. I have to find the page for it.
That's okay. I understand.
Here we are.
Okay,
yes, it's just one paragraph.
Okay, perfect.
It's called Growing Up. You might remember it. Adulthood begins, I think, with bringing in the bins, rental agreements, pay slips and bills. It comes with cooking, washing, banking and paying tax. It comes with getting an education, getting to know your body and your mind, how your body works, how your mind ticks. It comes when tragedy tests your mettle, reveals your strength or vulnerability. It's there the day you know what you stand for, decide who you vote for, the day you hear your calling. There is no ritual, no ink or scarring to mark these mundane moments of maturity, but it's there when you know whether or not the person you love is the person with whom you want to share bringing in the bins. That's it. I'll just pop my computer on top of it again.
Thank you so much for reading that. You guys, if you're listening, well, those of you listening, not if you're listening, of course you're listening, but those listening, please do check out the book, because I was just, I don't know. It just really hit me. It really hit me a certain way. So I really, wish you many, many, many more sales on the book.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you in a minute where we can, because I don't think I got your contact information, but just let us know where we can find you. But I wanted to ask you one more thing, and this is probably also really deep, but this is based on, what I read, but what do you, and I think maybe you kind of already told us, what can the woman or the man who is enduring a particular type of loneliness, a deep loneliness that only someone who never married or had children would understand, how do they deal with it when they see it coming?
Well, yes, you're right. I've understood it. Like, it's an experience of being human. Open yourself to it and go with it, because you'll find yourself in it. And, depression, despair, these are all the darkness. It's all awesome. It's not pleasant. Journal through it. Get yourself a therapist. Do what you need to keep your day, the world turning while you go into the dark wood. Read Dante, Dante's Inferno. Read that. Read anyone who's talking about depression, William Starr. And actually, I've got a little section in the book on exactly this, and also some suggested reading in the background. But really, you need to do two things: go with it and make sure you've got supports. Make sure you've got supports, and do what's important for you to get through it. But be open to the experience, because it'll grow you up.
Right. Yeah.
It'll make you into a full human being, and that's what we all want to be.
Right. I think I always say that on the podcast. Look it right in the eye. Look the fear directly in the eyeballs. Don't look away. Don't turn away from it. But
exactly.
I really, really appreciate your time today, Donna Ward. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Can you tell the listeners where? I know the book is obviously on Amazon, but
yes,
find you and find your book, your contact information?
So a couple of ways. My publisher is Allen and Unwin, but if you put Donna Ward, she, I dare not name, the publisher's website will come up. You can purchase directly from there. Booktopia, and also my own website, which is donna-ward.com.au. That's donna-ward.com.au will take you to my publisher's website as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
I hope that everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. This was, I probably said this maybe once before, but this was a pretty cerebral interview, if I do say so.
I'll take that as a compliment. It's very un-Australian to think of cerebral as a compliment, but I know what you mean. Thank you.
Yes, I'm hoping everybody does, because it really makes you think, and it just makes us look inward. And that's what I think of when I think cerebral. It's making me look inside.
Oh, great.
Inward. So thank you very much, Donna Ward, for taking the time. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
Episode. Please feel free to send feedback. I would love to hear from you all. And until next time, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you, Sibylla.